Chapter 1 is called Conceive Your Idea, and it's broken into three parts, three concepts. Concept number one is called Acknowledge that you want change. And you've already done that by picking up this program. There's something at a gut level or at a root level telling you that you need to change your life. So we're going to give you an exact process, an exercise that you can use to kick that whole idea off. And then concept two gets a little bit more focused on you and your intentions in life. We call it clear intention, which then leads us into concept three, where it's all about convincing yourself that you must change. This can't be something that you're just interested in or casually thinking about as a hobby. If you want to go from an employee to an entrepreneur, you need to know that this is something you've got to do. You have to do it for your life and for your freedom. So let's start by talking about concept one, acknowledging that you want change. This is essentially done through an exercise. And again, I recommend you go over and pick up the ebook at this time because you'll see all the exercises that are recommended in there. You can print them off, or you can even just do it digitally and type out your answers, whatever works easiest for you. The key is to just do this stuff and see where your head's at in the end. Now, the whole idea of acknowledge that you want change is really taking a look at your life today. And this exercise forces you to look at your current job and your level of happiness with it, and then a little bit of history on yourself. How did you get into what you're doing today? And was it based on like for me, was it based on some assumptions of this is what you have to do to get a secure job and a career, or did you get into this line of work because you were passionate about it at the time and maybe things have changed? And then I want you to start thinking about the things that are bothering you, because ultimately that's probably what drove you here. There was something bothering you, something not sitting well with you, and it's time for you to get that down on paper and get it out and start realizing what it is that you actually need to do, what kind of changes you need to have in your life. And then the biggest question, which is right at the end of this questionnaire, is if you had enough money to cover all of your expenses, would you still go to this job that you're going to every day right now? And if the answer is no, then why is it no? Because that's going to give you a huge reality check. This exercise in itself is a reality check of where your head is at today. And a lot of people are maybe afraid to admit these things to themselves or just never think that they should do it. Well, you're going to do that right now. And by the end of this exercise, I think you're going to move it into an entirely new frame of mind that's going to well prepare you for what we're about to do next in the second concept. So the second concept, clear intention, is where you get to talk about things that you want, things that you're passionate about. And these are really important topics because if you want to build a business and if you want to become a full-time entrepreneur, you better make sure that you're doing things that are in line with your passions and that will keep you inspired and motivated over the long haul. And we're going to get into why this is so important as you go through some of the rest of the exercises. But in the second concept, we're basically going to be going through three exercises. There's a passions exercise, a wants and don't wants exercise, as well as an ideal vision exercise. And you'll see in just a moment why they're so important. And it's actually quite an exciting thing to do when you sit down and put pen to paper, because you learn a lot of really interesting things about yourself. So let's quickly talk about the passions exercise. Now, most people have wired into them different things that they like to do, different things that they enjoy, and no two people are the same. If you were to ask somebody to list all the different things that they're passionate about and rank them, no, I'd venture to say that most people would not have the same list. It'd be hard pressed to find two people with the exact same list. Everybody has things that they find interesting. One of my business partners, we get along really well. We have lots of things that we share in common, but he doesn't like sports at all, and I love sports. So there's an area where our passions don't align at all, but there's things that he's into that I'm not, and it's just that's how we work as people. But what's really cool about this exercise is you get a chance to sit down and actually acknowledge what you're passionate about. And I generally recommend that you sit back and relax and you think about all the different things that you do and things that you experience in your life where you find it really easy to get lost in the moment and time slips away and you could just sit there and do that thing all day long and it wouldn't really be an effort for you. In fact, you wish you could do it even longer. That's an ultimate passion. Some things will be stronger than others, and the key here is not to worry about ranking them, but as much as it is to just define the things that really get you going. So some of these things will be related to business. Other things might be related to how you spend your time with your family or physical activities you do, like sporting events, or maybe you really like to cook. So I want you to define that passion in part A, and then in part B, describe your ultimate experience with the passion. right? As an example, you might be a huge fan of baseball, and your ultimate experience might be to be the person out on the field, throwing the pitches, being the pitcher, and playing defense. Another person might say, I love baseball, but I like being the hitter and hitting home runs. Whereas another person might really like baseball from a coaching perspective. They like being the coach and firing their team up and motivating them for the next game. So it's very important to understand what your best experience with that passion is. And you're going to use that information moving forward when it comes time to start defining some of your business objectives. The next section is called the wants, don't wants exercise. And this is something that not a lot of people do, at least part of it anyways. Knowing what you don't want is probably pretty common, actually, when you think about it. We all have a pretty easy time complaining about the things we don't want in our lives. We don't want to have our bosses bothering us. We don't want to be in debt. All these different things that we don't want. It's pretty easy to complain about them because they're painful. It's the other side of this exercise that I often find a lot more interesting. What do you want? Do you know that it's actually okay for you to define the things that you want in life? I think a lot of people struggle with this because either some unseen or hidden belief in their subconscious is telling them that it's greedy or wrong or selfish to say that they want things and to acknowledge that they actually have wants. And it's one thing to have needs, like the need for shelter and clothing, all that, but it's okay to want things as well. To want to earn money, to want to do a job that you enjoy, to want to spend extra free time with your family. I don't care what it is, but acknowledging what you want is a big deal. And if you actually spend time to do this exercise in full, and that's what you're going to do right now, you're going to learn a lot about yourself. And so there's two parts to it. First, describe what you want and think about it at any level of life. Career, family, relationship, spirituality, doesn't matter. But take time to really define it at a core level. What do you want? And then, even more importantly, why do you want it? And why don't you want it if it's a don't want? Because this will actually give you a bigger insight into what the real driving force is behind you. So for example here, if we look at, let's use the don't want example. I do not want to work in a job that has no meaning for me. Why? Well, in this example here, I'm no longer willing to invest all this time doing something that drains and depresses me. I don't want to look back at the end of my life and be regretful that I didn't step out when I was young or when I had the time to do the things that I want. So you can see it's one thing to complain, it's another thing to quantify it and explain why it's important to eliminate, or if it's a want, why it's important to incorporate that into your life. And this is a huge step for your life. If you acknowledge what you want, and then why you want it, you're going to be very driven and much more clear and motivated as to why you want to start this business or anything else you happen to be doing as a result of this program. Then the third exercise in this concept is called ideal vision. And this is actually, again, like the previous exercise, something that very few people ever take the time to do. And when you think about vision itself, vision is basically how we formulate and create our lives. Anything that we want to experience, anything that we want to have or be or do, we have to first live it at a visual or at a mental level. And when you think about what is mental activity, what is thinking about something or visualizing something, it's putting pictures in your mind as to that describe this experience that we're talking about here. So the clearer you get and the better you can describe those pictures in your head, then the easier it will be to bring those pictures into reality. Again, until you get that clear picture and write it in words, you're not giving yourself the 100% full opportunity of experiencing all this stuff. So this ideal vision exercise is basically just that. We're going to ask you to make a written description of your ideal life. And this will go into every single detail that's important to you. So I'm not so worried about the context of if you write it in the first person or the third person, or it doesn't matter. The whole point is just to get your vision down. Talk about things like in my life I'm working in this kind of business. I'm spending this kind of time traveling. I'm seeing these kind of places. I'm working with these kind of clients, and I'm earning this amount of money. I'm having X number of days per year free time to just totally unwind and relax. I'm able to spend time on humanitarian efforts that are really important to me. Whatever it is, get it down into your description so that you can see it and then experience it as you read it. And when you're done with that, then you can save that ideal vision onto the sheet that's included in this guide. The third and final concept here in chapter 1 is convincing yourself that you must change. And it's one thing to be an employee and to dream about the idea of becoming a business owner and being that successful entrepreneur that seems so wonderful and sexy. But really, it can be very difficult to actually make that shift, to step out and do the thing, do the action that makes you become an entrepreneur full time. So you need to do a bunch of mental exercises that convince yourself that this is something you have to do. It's not just something you're going to dream about. You're going to reach a point where you got to do it, and until you reach that point, you likely won't act. So how do you convince yourself that you must change? Well, it's this exercise. That's how. You need to basically build yourself a bunch of emotional motivators. And by emotional motivators, I mean things that are going to motivate you with such a high level of emotional fuel that you will reach that mental point where this is something you have to do. And you're going to do it from two different perspectives. One is the idea of when I succeed, then, and you're going to list reasons that drive you at an emotional level to want to succeed, to want to become this business owner. So when I succeed, I'm going to feel such an overwhelming sense of happiness and pride and joy and accomplishment that I'm so glad, and I can't even imagine that I never would have taken this action. And there are a lot of positive motivators. But what's even more important is the second part of this exercise, where you start acknowledging all the things that if I don't succeed, then. And this is where you get into some real heavy stuff, because that's negative emotion. That's negative motivators, and we're, as people, we are even more strongly motivated by things that we want to move away from, things that we want to avoid. We do not want to have to admit to the people in our lives who have doubted us that we couldn't do it. And so you're going to list all these things. If I don't succeed, then I'm proving all those other people who doubted me right, and I'd never ever want to do that. If I don't succeed, then I'm going to let myself down, and I don't want to look back and say that I gave up. So that could be your safety net against giving up. You just don't want to let yourself down. So start listing out all of your positive and negative emotional motivators and keep this list going and growing with you, because you're going to need every single piece of it as you reach times in your life and in your business where the struggle kicks in, and it will kick in. And I'm not trying to make this all negative, because a lot of it is going to be a positive and fun experience, but you need to have all of these tools, these motivators, as weaponry in your arsenal to keep you going, because I guarantee you're going to need it. So go ahead and complete, make sure that you complete all the exercises in this chapter so that we can then move on to chapter 2. Chapter 2 is called Create Belief because the underlying purpose here is to get you to a point where you believe in yourself and you believe that it's actually possible for you to become a full-time business owner, an entrepreneur, and make it work and be successful with it. And that's the hardest thing for a lot of people in the beginning, is to realize that they do have the internal makeup to make this happen and to have that sense of self-respect and self-belief that they can do it. But it's a lot easier to create the belief in yourself if you go through a set of proven principles and lessons and exercises so that you're convincing yourself, you're convincing your own mind that you can do this. And it's based on a few different points. Let me walk you through the 4 basic elements of this chapter. The first one is called Business Blueprints. Then we go into Mind Conditioning, Guidance and Mentoring, and then Architecting the New You. But again, the main thing here is that we are trying to get you to a point where your belief in your ability to succeed and overcome your challenges is going to be far greater than your fear of losing that quote-unquote security of your job, which is not really security at all. It's just perceived security. But the belief in yourself must be higher than the fear you have of losing that security. And until the belief is higher and bigger and stronger in your mind, you likely won't act. You won't be able to start this business and to go out on your own as an entrepreneur. So, having said all of that, let's dive right into the first part, which is Business Blueprints. So the first section, Business Blueprints, covers 3 very important and vitally necessary topics that you want to make sure you give necessary time to. And depending on the person, depending on who you are, the amount of time you spend here will change. People with a little bit of experience in entrepreneurship won't need to spend as much time as somebody who's never even considered being a business owner. I'll leave it up to you as to how much time you spend on each one of these ideas and exercises. The 3 topics are recognizing your own value, product and or service development, plus marketing and sales. Once you combine all these three things together, you have the fundamentals of building a business, and then you can move forward. The first topic is recognizing your own value, and this is probably one of the most common things that I speak to people about when I do coaching with new entrepreneurs or aspiring entrepreneurs. The idea of recognizing what you're worth, recognizing what you bring to the table. And the biggest problem that I see is that most people don't give themselves enough credit. Now, there are some cases where I meet very confident people and they think they have the world to share, and I have to sometimes rein those people in. But like I said, in most cases, people just don't even realize that they have value to offer other people, and that value that they offer can be a business. And the best example, there's a couple examples in the book, but the best example I can give you is if you have a skill, and I don't care what it is. The example in the book is building decks. If you've been building decks and you can put a deck together on your own, even if you've only been doing it for a few months, you can sell that service as a business to someone like me who doesn't have the first clue about building decks. I'm completely useless when it comes to handyman work. And if you're good at it, I don't care if you've been certified or not, you can build a deck for me if you can provide that service and give me the product that I want. Now, obviously, there's some things that go into play with regards to building permits and all that stuff. But I'm just talking about the act itself. You don't need to wait for permission, and in most cases, for the people that I talk to, the businesses that they want to start, don't require certification, don't require anything other than self-belief and recognizing your own value to get started. So that's a big point, and right now, you need to start thinking about what it is that you can bring to the table. You probably have a whole bunch of skills and abilities that other people don't possess that they're willing to give you money for, and you just have to recognize that value in yourself. You may have been developing websites for 1 or 2 or 3 months, but if you can develop a website and put up a good product, somebody who has zero clue as to how websites are built and they need one, you can charge that person money to build a website. That's a business. It's a business opportunity, and you can embrace it and take advantage of it. In fact, the sooner you do it, the sooner that you realize that you're of value to that person and charge them money to produce that product or service for them, the quicker you'll be successful in business. So now that you understand your value and you have an idea of how to place value on your knowledge and your skills, let's talk about translating that into very specific product and or service opportunities that you can develop. Before we really go there, let's actually discuss what a business person is, what a business is in general. A business person is somebody who is solving problems for people at a profit. Now, even my example of the guy building decks, he's solving my problem of not knowing anything about construction or building decks, and he's charging me money for his skills and abilities. So now is where you get to start thinking about all of the things that you bring to the table. And it's a combination of things you're passionate about and things that you have skill and knowledge and ability in. And you're constructing it into and packaging it in such a way that I can pay you money to receive all of the benefit of those skills. Now, the way we're going to do this in this exercise is going to help you come up with your product and service ideas. When you're first getting started out, there are a number of different directions this could go. So this exercise will help you define some of the things that you could get started with. The exercise looks at 3 different angles or approaches: problems, solutions, and then the audience that fulfills that solution. So here's an example. A problem is that many freelance writers or writers in general experience RSI, repetitive strain injury, where they just spend far too much time typing and they get this really long-term pain in their arms. The solution to that could be to create voice recognition software, and this stuff exists already, so we're just going through a generic example here. Creating voice recognition software so that those writers spend far less time typing and far more time simply speaking, but they're still producing the same results required in their job. Now, that audience, it's an interesting thing here, the audience isn't just freelance writers, it's anybody who's writing. So the opportunities will grow as you address a problem and as you come up with a solution that's well-founded and serves the initial client base or the initial audience well. You can grow these things. So that's what you need to do right now, is think about all the different problems that you're able to solve, what your solution is, and who you're talking to. If we use the example of that website developer that I just spoke about in the previous slide, if you're developing websites for people, there are a number of problems you're solving. You're not just solving their problem of not having any web presence. You're solving that problem, but you're also solving the problem that they don't know the first thing about capturing leads online. They don't know how to deal with customers that they've met on the internet, so you can set them up for that. They don't know what a good website looks like. Maybe they don't even have a logo or a header yet for their website. Maybe some of the wording that they thought was going to be appropriate for their website isn't, based on your experience and the things that you know about website design. So there's all these inherent problems that come along with the larger problem that you're solving along the way. So here is your opportunity to address one by one all of the problems, no matter how small or how big they are, that you're solving and what audience that potentially can grow to. Then the next part is marketing and sales. Now, there are so many other elements to business that we're not going to get into in this program, and they are important, and I talk about them in the ebook a little bit, but without marketing and especially without sales, you don't have a business. These are so fundamental to getting started and to being successful that this is where I wanted to dedicate all of the focus and energy from a business blueprints perspective. So there are 5 different topics here, or 5 different points that I want you to study and then go and do the exercise on. I'm going to walk through all 5 of them right now. In this marketing and sales exercise, you're going to learn how to learn. There's no possible way I could teach you marketing and sales in one ebook about quitting your job. This is a study that you're going to have to get yourself in the habit of doing forever, basically. I'm in my 4th year of business now, and I'm studying more marketing and sales techniques than ever before. So I'm already banking on the knowledge I've learned over the past few years, but I'm learning more and more each year, and it's helping me grow my business, and ultimately my revenues and profits keep increasing because I'm learning more of these skills. So in this exercise, you're going to identify and start studying 5 different marketing experts, at least 5. You might even want to do more. And you can find marketing experts anywhere, but the internet's probably your best source to find them and identify them, and then make a commitment to learning that stuff as you go along. I also want you to look into sales communities. So this could be discussion forums online. It could be websites that you go, or blogs where you go and comment on a regular basis and get to know the people there. But the whole point is to learn about selling and learn about the process of exchanging your products and services for money. And there's so many different techniques, strategies, and ideas that you can learn here. And if you haven't ever been in sales before, then this is going to be a skill that you learn slowly but surely over time. And there's nothing else to say about it other than you just have to commit to learning it. Then learning marketing methods. There are so many different ways to get your message out there. Once you start your business, for some businesses, advertising in the newspaper is actually going to work, whereas with other businesses, you could spend thousands on newspaper print ads and display ads and get 0 return on that. So learning the different methods that are available, and obviously the internet's going to be huge for solo entrepreneurs and people that don't have a shop with foot traffic. Learning these methods, it's very important for you, and to identify all the different marketing methods that are out there. It's up to you. It's your job to do this, and then to start partnering with people or taking courses or whatever it takes so that you understand the methods that are available, and then you can maximize your investment if there is money required, or you can maximize your time if you're spending time on doing this kind of marketing. Fourth, marketing courses. So this could be anything. It could be like a downloadable DVD series or an audio series, or you can go to marketing seminars. Some of them are free. There are many cases where you can go to a local small business enterprise center. I know that in Canada they offer those for free as part of our just what's available to us through our government programming. But I don't care where you live, there are courses like this available, and they're usually not all that expensive. Like I said, there are some that are free where you can learn very basic marketing, and then you can scale that up to very advanced and specific marketing for your industry, for your niche. And again, it's up to you to find these people that can help you with that. The 5th step in this exercise is to go and watch business programs. As an example, there's a program in Canada called, and I believe it's in the UK as well, called Shark's Tank, where entrepreneurs go on this show and pitch their ideas to already very successful entrepreneurs who are looking to invest into new companies. What I like about it is that if you like to watch TV and you like to, sit down and just enjoy a program, well, you can still keep that habit, but instead of watching something that's mindless and doesn't get you anywhere, you can switch it without killing your habit altogether and now watch something that's going to fuel your business and maybe give you some ideas. And what I find when I watch programs like this is that I can only get partway through, and I'm so excited and energized and often get some ideas that I've got to go back and start working on my business again. But ultimately, it's about learning sales, learning marketing, and learning how all of these things work, both at a psychological level and then at a physical level when it comes time to implement the ideas. The next section in the Create Belief chapter, the second part, is called Mind Conditioning. And this is actually a lot bigger of a topic than I probably dedicated to in the book. But the reason for that is that this is very much a self-paced exercise, and it's a self-based learning. Everybody's going to have their own taste as to how to do mind conditioning. But the main thing here is to bring the awareness to you as to how important this is. Now, I'll just kind of give you a little bit of my own experience when I talk about mind conditioning. What I'm really saying is that where you are today, being somebody who is of the employee world and having this desire to be an entrepreneur, to be out on your own, um, you've got to where you are today through a certain set of beliefs and behaviors and ideas that are essentially programmed into your head. You've been conditioned that way. Conditioning is really just a bunch of habits that you've acquired over time. And if you want to change, if you want to become this new person, then you need to recondition your mind. So that's why this is called mind conditioning. What I was able to do in my life was, once I recognized that I wanted to make this transformation and become an entrepreneur, I knew that just at a gut level, I knew that it was going to take some time and that I had to really break down whatever beliefs were holding me where I was in that job. So what I did was, I happened to be a commuter. I spent many hours a week on the road, anywhere from 1 hour a day to up to 3 hours per day, depending on where my customers were and where I was driving. So I had this enormous opportunity to invest in and listen to different kinds of personal development programs where I literally turned off all music and just sent in these motivational and thought-provoking messages into my head. So I was thinking about them all the time. And not a single day passed for probably 6 to 8 months where I did not listen to personal development audio or watched it on a video or read it in a book. And usually it was a combination of those. But that's exactly what I want you to do, because that's what it takes to recondition your mind to this new level. And so that's what the whole first idea here is: to read, watch, listen, and then mix combinations of those things, of different kinds of personal development messages, authors, speakers, programs. In the ebook, so go and take a look if you need to right now, but in the ebook I've given a bunch of my recommended favorite authors, but that by no means is the extent of the list. The number of people out there teaching this kind of material, showing you how, giving you examples and demonstrating for you how you can think in a more empowering way, it's amazing the number of resources that are out there. I can remember, as an example, when I started doing some cold calling when I was first launching my business. That's just what it took. I was cold calling to get speaking engagements, and it was so scary for me. It was just way out of my comfort zone that I would get in my car and listen to Les Brown, who's a motivational speaker. And as I went from call to call, his 10 or 15-minute talk pumped me up enough that I had enough courage to go back into the next call. And very often I'd get rejected, but that rejection wouldn't stick with me because I'd go and pump my mind full of this motivational stuff again. So a lot of people say, oh, he's just a motivational speaker and it's just rah rah, but you can't think of it that way. You really need to understand that what you're doing is you're sending messages to your mind over and over again to convince yourself that it is possible for you to become this new person. And that's what mind conditioning and personal development lessons is all about. So experiment with variety. For example, Les Brown is a motivational speaker, and he can get you excited and pumped up if you need to do things like cold calling. But then there's other speakers who are much more reserved and very business focused, and they'll talk about business principles and best practices. And then you'll hear of other speakers who are very much on the spiritual side and finding peace and relaxation and calm in your life, which is also very important when you think about all of the potential stress that comes with being an entrepreneur. So try different speakers and authors and personal development teachers out and see who resonates with you, and the ones that do, stick with those and invest some time into those. And again, like I said before, daily repetition is an absolute must. This isn't something you can just do on a Saturday and a Sunday afternoon and expect that you're going to become this new person with a transformed life. This is daily, and you got to do it as often as possible. Like I said, I had that opportunity as a commuter to do it. If you're a commuter, great. If you're not, then maybe you have an iPod or something that lets you listen to these materials while you work. Do that. If you go to the gym, get some kind of listening device so that while you're working out, you can listen to your mind conditioning, your personal development stuff. It's up to you, but if you commit to this, I guarantee you're going to start seeing a change in your overall in the way you carry yourself and the way you think about things. So the third step in the Create Belief chapter is called Guidance and Mentoring. And there's a couple of very important topics in here that I just want to dive right into. First of all, mentoring. We just talked about mind conditioning and learning about personal development, learning about personal transformation. And while you're listening to these things and learning them, it's all very theoretical. And then you'll start applying things and taking action in your life where you're learning on the fly, and that's great. But it really goes into high gear, this whole mental conditioning or learning process, when you can find a really good mentor. And a mentor is somebody who can demonstrate the real world application of all these lessons that you've been studying. And this is somebody who's already been through that process, whether they did it naturally, as they were just kind of born into this risk-taking successful entrepreneur mentality, but in most cases they probably weren't. They trained themselves to be that way. You can learn so much by just being around and hanging around people who have already done what you're trying to do, and experiencing what it's like to be them by observing them, and even in some cases participating in projects with them. So there's no one step or single process that you can follow to finding a mentor. You just need to acknowledge that having a mentor is important. And this exercise will help you find a mentor, but also identify mentors that would work well with you and that would be a good fit for you. And the sooner you can get involved with a mentor, the better off you're going to be. So the exercise in the book gives you basically a preparation sheet for finding a mentor. And I won't go through the whole thing, but really the idea is to look for people out there that you want to learn from. And in general, if you can find somebody who's already in the industry or the business, or at least something very similar to what you want to do, and they've achieved a lot of the things that you see yourself achieving one day, that's a great person to hook up with. But you can't just walk up to them and ask, "Can I be your friend?" Because nobody makes friends like that. Nobody starts mentoring people because they just come up and ask out of the blue. You need to be a little bit strategic with it. So start thinking about how you can help that person in their business, how you can help them advance with their current goals. Think about how you plan to approach the person. In many cases, if you just ask to buy them lunch or buy them a cup of coffee, they'd be interested. And especially if you're coming from the perspective of, "Hey, I just want to learn from you. Maybe you compliment them, or maybe you even buy a product or service from them to show how much you believe in what they do. That's a great way of getting your foot in the door with a mentor. And then if you ask from a very genuine perspective, saying, "You know what, I really respect the work you do, and I'd love to learn from you." And if you do it from the perspective of that you just want to learn and you're not trying to steal or borrow their time, and you respect that their time is worth money, they'll more often than not be willing to help you. So as you get involved with mentors and you're helping them, then you can ask them for help and ask them for lots of advice. And then the best thing you can do is start applying that advice and show them that you're getting results. Because I know from the perspective of having mentors and also being a mentor to other people, that this is the process that keeps those relationships going. And very often a mentor-mentee relationship will turn into simply just a friendship. And that's the best possible scenario for you as a new business owner, is to have a friend who's already a very experienced, a very successful entrepreneur. So that's an overview of how to acquire and then how to work with a mentor. The next section is coaching tips. Now, in some cases, mentorship relationships work out amazing, and I really hope you can find a mentor. But in other cases, I also recommend having a coach. So these are not mutually exclusive things. It's probably something you do both of. Coaching really comes in handy when you want to have somebody that that understands the process of transformation, understands how to motivate people and how to hold people accountable for what it is they're trying to do in their life. And there's so many great coaches out there that can help you do it. And I've personally used success coaching and different kinds of life coaching systems in my life, even before I became an entrepreneur. And I attribute that to really helping me launch into my business owner career. Because without it, I think I would have been missing a lot of perspectives or blind spots that I just couldn't see. And these coaches were great at seeing the things that I didn't see in myself, or that I just didn't see about my life. So when you consider hiring a coach, look, there's 5 things I generally recommend people look at. First of all, what's the coach's background? If you're looking for a very specific kind of coaching, if it's business coaching you're looking for, make sure that the coach that you're hiring isn't just certified as a business. In fact, I don't ever care if my coaches are certified or not. I want to know if that coach has successfully launched a business. If you're looking for a coach that helps you find more balance and peace in your life, make sure that they're very peaceful people and have a well-balanced life. So look more at the results of the coach versus certifications or anything else. If they're producing results that you want, usually a good candidate to be your coach. Also, if they have a proven track record of really helping people transform their lives, then that's a very good sign that they can probably help you as well. The other thing is most good coaches will offer a free session. In fact, it's to the coach's benefit as much as yours to make sure that there's a match. Not all personality types get along, and in some cases, if you have a type of coach that's just not going to jive with you, maybe they're very aggressive and you're more passive personality, their aggressive nature might not sit well with you, and it actually might hinder your progress. So free consultations, and it's usually just a 20-minute call, is more than enough time to tell if you're going to be able to get along with that coach. So make sure that they offer those and that you can choose as to how your coaching is going to proceed. Then understand the kind of format that the coach operates in. In some cases, it's in person, one-on-one, live at a coffee shop or in an office. But in more often than not, the coach is not physically going to live in the same area as you because there's just so many coaches to choose from. There's a good chance your coach will live somewhere else in a physically different location. So the format might be phone call or video Skype, or it might be text-based through email and through just chatting. So pick the style that works best for you and just make sure as you go through that you're actually getting true value and it's really helping you. Also make sure that the coach offers services that are flexible to your needs. There are some coaching programs that say, look, we want you to commit for an entire year. But if you know that's just not how you operate and you have very short deadlines of things you're trying to achieve, maybe a 3-month or a 6-month coaching package makes more sense for you. And if they're not willing to offer that, then that's something you have to consider. Maybe this isn't the right coach for you if they're forcing you into a length of time that you aren't comfortable with. And then beyond that, ask what kind of additional support they provide. There is the coaching session itself, which is the call or the meeting, and traditionally that's once every week or every second week. But then beyond that, you're going to want access to your coach to get perspectives or ideas or bounce ideas off them. So how do they offer that? Is it through email? Is it through chat? Are you allowed to call them at different intervals? Find all of that out, and then based on all that stuff, you can usually make a pretty educated decision as to whether or not this coach will help you. Then the fourth and final step here in the Create Belief chapter is called Architecting the New You. And really what it comes down to, what it boils down to, is looking at how we produce results in our lives. Now, results themselves, anything that, if you look at your life right now, you have results in terms of your physical level of fitness. You have results in terms of your bank account. You have the result of what you're currently doing at your workplace, what your job is. All of these different results, when you analyze them, were driven or you arrived at these results because of other things. And the process that you get to results is you have habits, and those habits drive your behavior. The behavior basically makes you take actions that produce your results. So if you really want to change the results in your life, you have to go to the root cause of the results, and that is your habits. So that takes us into what I call the habits exercise. This is not just a theoretical exercise. This is something that I applied in my own life for well over 100 days straight. And it's probably the number one thing I attribute my being able to go from this job mentality of needing that job to being totally free of that and saying, you know what, now is the time for me to become an entrepreneur. And it's because I did this, because I addressed very specific habits in my life. And I'm going to explain the system to you a little bit. The idea here is to print out at least 90 copies of the sheet that's included in the PDF. It looks something like you see on the screen right now, not quite, but very similar. And the idea is that you want to come up with 6 success habits, or yeah, let's just call them habits for now, that you want to incorporate into your life. I've already given you 3 in this chapter. Your business blueprints, because you want to become an entrepreneur, you need to have those business fundamentals. You need to work on those every single day. You need to have a habit of mental conditioning. Every single day you have to feed your mind with positivity and fuel that keeps you going so that you become that entrepreneur you want to become. And you need some form of guidance and mentoring in your life. And whether it's from the coach, or it's from, even if it's just a support group or a networking group you join, or if you do find that mentor, you got to have that. You got to experience that hopefully every day if you can. So those would be the first 3 habits that you create. And then you add 3 more in the blank spots there where you see the boxes. So this could be things like doing a good deed once a day. You could have a success habit of spending 30 minutes a day creating content. Let's say your new business is you're going to be a blogger. You need to make sure you're writing blog content on a very regular basis. So that's a habit you should get into doing every single day. You might have a habit of working out, going to the gym at least once a day, even if it's only for 10 minutes to get your heart rate up so that you can stay healthy and energized, because everything you're trying to do right now in your life is going to require full focus and your full energy. So what you do is every single day for 90 days, you write those 6 habits on the right side of your page. Then you start going about your day. And every time you do something, whether it's a simple task like uh, getting up and reading your book, you write it down. Or maybe it's you drove to work. Well, on that drive to work, you listen to personal development, you write it down. And as you complete tasks on the left side and you write them down, if they fulfill one of the habits you're trying to imprint on the right side, you check it off. And this is a great way of ensuring that at the end of the day, you can ask yourself, did I commit to my habits? So the other thing it does for you is it's kind of an activity management system. Anytime you do something, you write it down, you know what you did at the end of a day. And you can also see that, yes, I have 6 check marks on the right side. I've committed to my new habits. And if you commit to these habits for a long enough period of time, you are now that new person. Those habits are part of who you are. So this is something you can experiment with. If not all these pieces of the exercise fit for you, then you can change it. Maybe 6 is too many, or maybe the 3 that I recommended here is just too much for you to absorb at once. The key thing is create new habits that drive results that you want to produce, and make sure that you track every single day to do something that contributes to you having this new habit, this new behavior in your life. And I guarantee you're going to see those new results. It's an absolute guarantee. It's inevitable because that's the way it works. Which brings us to the third and final chapter called Make the Leap. Now, in this chapter, we're going to go through 4 essential topics. And these are topics that I really want to ensure that you spend the time required to not just gloss over them and get them at an intellectual level, but to really study these and make them part of your inner being, something that you embrace emotionally and you really just, you get it. You can explain it to somebody else. The 4 topics are preparing for challenges, preparing for resistance, overcoming myths, and then committing to your decision. And that fourth and final one, at some point you need to make the commitment to be an entrepreneur. Otherwise, it will forever just be something you're interested in. It's like kicking tires, and you're just not going to take the action required. So how do we get you to a point where you commit and then move on? And that's where this program ends and your journey begins. So the first section here is called Preparing for Challenges. And that is probably the absolute biggest thing you're going to face if you want to become an entrepreneur. There will be a seemingly endless stream of challenges, roadblocks, you name it, thrown up in your face and right on your road to what you thought was going to be success. It's still going to be success, but it's not going to be as straight, narrow, and smooth as you probably maybe been hoping for. But that's okay, because challenges are a good thing. And I really want you to embrace that idea. And that's the first point here is, if you can embrace challenge and remember that people, human beings, we are goal-striving mechanisms. We're goal-striving beings, and we are at our best when we're thinking and looking at problems and using our creative abilities to understand the challenges and then break through them. I want you to think about a time in your life where you had a problem, you faced it, you solved it, and you came out triumphant in the end. It was probably an amazing experience. I know for me, anytime I've solved something, it's just such an awesome feeling, and I can't wait to do it again. The problem is when we're facing a challenge at the moment, when the problem raises its head, it's very easy to become depressed and negative and not and forget that it's actually leading us to something that's going to feel amazing once we figure it out. It's more about believing that you are going to have the ideas and have the wherewithal to figure it out, and so that when challenges come up, you can embrace it and be excited instead of worrying about it and focusing on the problem. You're focusing on ultimately the solution, and that's going to give you the fuel, the energy, the drive you need to move forward. So that's just one little mental shift you can make that will help you deal with these inevitable challenges that I guarantee you're going to face, and you're going to face them over and over and over again. The other thing I want you to realize is that there are going to be far more failures than successes. You're going to take a lot of action steps and do things that just don't work out the way you expected. In your mind, this seemed like a great idea, like it was going to take you to the next level and make you a quick 10K in profits, and it doesn't happen. I don't care what it is. You're going to try things that seem like a great idea. They don't work out. You'll label them as a failure or as a mistake. But what it really is it's an action that you took that proved to yourself that you can do something and make a mistake and then recover from it. And that's really the key. The key is to be in action more than it is to find successful steps. The fun part of it is that the more action you take, yes, you're going to hit failures, but for every certain number of failures, you're also going to get a success. You're going to get a win that really excites you. So it's kind of like back to that first point with embracing challenge. The more you're in action, the more you're doing stuff, the more opportunity you're getting to find things that do work. And that's why it all comes into it. I want to wrap this up with the third point. It all comes back to the fact that challenges create valuable experiences for you. The problems that you're faced with are problems today, but they're learning experiences that you will leverage in the future. There are so many things that I do in business now that I wouldn't have had the first clue how to do had I not made the mistake doing them the first time. The biggest example I can think of is when I first got into business for myself, one of the things I wanted to do was to be paid to speak. The idea of getting up on a stage and talking to a room full of people and inspiring them, motivating them, whatever, and being paid to do so was such a huge dream for me. So I just dove right in and started doing that and cold called for gigs. And then I realized once I got up there that I didn't have a lot to share. I wasn't really prepared for that stage yet. I hadn't earned my right to talk about those things. And so I had to take a step back and I realized that I need to focus on building my business up from the ground up, working with one-on-one clients, coaching people so that I had other stories to tell, plus my own as I built my business, to then be the kind of speaker who would be requested to be speaking at events and to be paid naturally rather than cold calling in front of it. So I would never have learned that that's the kind of speaker I wanted to be had I not tried. So yes, it was difficult in the beginning, and I had a hard time getting paid to speak, and I ultimately had to give it up for a while. But now I'm back to doing it, but I'm doing it the right way, and I never would have known how to do it the right way had I not tried and quote unquote failed that first time. So being ready for these challenges is going to be huge, and as you do it and as you embrace it, you're going to learn to enjoy the process a lot more. The second section here is called preparing for resistance. And I pretty much guarantee you that when you do something like we're talking about in this manual, quitting a job, resigning from a career that seems secure and it seems just so the norm that most people expect others to do. Everybody expects us to do this kind of stuff. That when you break that mold and you go against the grain, people are going to resist it. They're going to criticize you, judge you, you name it. And so here I just want to shed a little bit of light on this topic to help you get a little bit more mentally prepared for what you are I can almost guarantee you will be facing at some level of your life. Now, the resistance when you do this kind of thing is going to come from different sources, and there'll be different types of resistance. The source of the resistance might be something as intimate as your immediate family or distant family or other relatives or friends or even some of the coworkers that you currently work with today. And the types of resistance that's going to pop up could be anything from negative judgments or criticisms or people making fun of you or laughing at your goals and dreams because they're too scared or shy or whatever to admit that they have their own. So they just spend all their time making fun of people like you who are actually out there looking to make something out of your life, looking to make a big change, an exciting change. And so prepare for this resistance. Know that it's going to come. Expect that it will come so that you can start preparing your mind to handle it. And all it is resistance. It's just other people talking. It doesn't have to be made into anything bigger than that. But a lot of people aren't prepared for this. And I see this happening with new entrepreneurs. They didn't expect to have people in their family criticizing them. They thought everybody would be on board, and then it just doesn't go to plan. Well, there's going to be the way you think, and there's going to be the way they think. It's a you versus them mentality. They think that you have to have a job, and it's a smart thing to do, and it's secure, and that's what everybody should do because that's what we've all been programmed to believe. You, on the other hand, know that if you were to stay in your current position and remain unhappy, and just trade every day, every hour of every day for doing something you don't believe in anymore, you know that that's not worth it, and you know that you have more in you, and you have more to give, and that you want to live that life to the fullest. When you look back at the end of your life, you're going to be happy that you took these challenges and you have the foresight to understand that. So you think a different way than they do, and that's fine. Just understand that and let them continue to think the way they think. And if they need to judge you and throw resistance blocks up in your way, that's fine. Let them do it. You don't let it stop you. you can control that resistance in terms of how it impacts you, and you can also limit the amount of resistance. This is a really interesting thing. I find that a lot of new entrepreneurs are so excited that they want to share these ideas with everybody, and then when they see these resistances popping up so quickly, they get discouraged. Well, here's one strategy: don't share as much information with people. If the people you're sharing with aren't going to support you and aren't going to make you feel as though you're making a good move, and they're going to actually potentially plant a seed in your head that questions your own ability to succeed, then just don't share as much with them. And if those relationships are becoming sour and actually affecting your attitude and possibly affecting your ability to succeed in business, then you can do something called dissolving those relationships. Doesn't mean you cut the relationship off altogether, but you spend less time with that person. And the time you do spend with them can be focused on talking about other things. You don't necessarily have to go into what you're doing right now with your life and your career and your job. That's none of their business anyways. If they're not the kind of person who's going to make you feel energized and excited about what you're doing, my theory, my philosophy is just don't share it with them. Now the third step is called overcoming myths. Now I want you to think about all those resistances we just talked about. Resistances where people might be criticizing, judging, planting negative doubts in your mind. It all comes back to what I call myths, because people are really taking what I call this what if mentality. They might be asking you stuff like, what if you get sued, or what if your business fails, or what if you make the wrong moves, or what if you lose all your money? All of these really negative, potentially disastrous scenarios, but it's all based on speculation. What if this scenario? What if that happens? And the question is, none of those things have happened yet, so why are we worrying about them? Why are we questioning them, and why are we using them to make us feel bad in our current moment? Those what if scenarios are really enhancing their ability that, or their belief that they need this secure job. See, in their mind, if they have the secure job, they don't have to worry about the what if scenarios. But if they don't, and if you're going to go out and break the mold and not have the secure job, now you need to start worrying about all these what if scenarios. But the truth of the matter is, it's all about trust. All those safety nets that they think they have because of their job are just myths anyways. None of them exist. Anything can happen at any moment in time in our lives, and so the what if scenarios could be blown up and expanded and taken to just ridiculous levels, almost like what they're doing here with you and your resistance. You could ask things like, well, what if I go to work today and get in my car and get in a car accident? Or what if I go on a vacation and we don't get home, or we lose all our money? Whatever. Like you can come up with so many different ridiculous what if scenarios that if you were to really embrace them and really worry about every single what if scenario, you'd never do anything. You'd never leave the house, because every single move you make is a potential disaster waiting to happen. So that when you want to overcome these myths, you have to realize that there are no certainties in life. There's an element of trust, and you just have to be willing to let go and rely on yourself and on your own ability to do whatever it takes to get yourself out of those situations. If you remember back to what this whole chapter is about, it's getting you to a place where your belief in your ability to overcome whatever is required, your belief in yourself, is greater than your fear of what might happen if you venture out and lose the security. So we're creating belief here, and we're not buying into this myth of what if this happens, what if that happens. I don't know what's going to happen. I just know that I'm going to be able to handle it, and that's where I want you to get to mentally. Which brings us to the fourth, final, and biggest section of this entire book, and that is committing to your decision. Committing to your decision to change your life, transform your life, become an entrepreneur, and live a total life of freedom, purpose, meaning, value, you name it. This is not an easy step, so I really commend you for getting this far conceptually in this program. The fact that you've gotten here gives you such a huge advantage over people who sit there and dream. And so I'm going to give you the 5 steps that you can use that will help you not only commit to your decision, but force you into this, because you know you need to do this for your life. The first thing is to pick a date. What is a date that you are going to be ready to resign from this job? Now, this program was originally written as a 90-day system to help you resign and start your career in 90 days, but I realize that that's not really realistic for a lot of people. So think about what's realistic for you. And I often tell people, don't give yourself as much time as you may think. If you think you need 2 years to pull this off, you're probably really over-exaggerating it. Think about it in an aggressive nature. Think about it as you only have one life to live, and you want to get this going quickly. But pick a date and start thinking about the best date for you. Once you have a date, write it down on a piece of paper or print it out on a nice page and then hang it on your wall so that you remind yourself every single day. Maybe hang it up in a number of spots. Remind yourself every single day that this is what you intend to do. This is what you have to do for your life. Then, an even bigger step is to announce it to friends, accountability partners, coaches, whoever you can find that will be very supportive and will help you stay firm and hold to this goal, because you're going to need it. It's not the easiest decision in the world. It's going to be a little bit scary. And if you have other people that will help you hold yourself accountable, then this will help you immensely. So once you announce it to them, you set the wheels in motion. Now it's out there, and when there's an expectation from other people, it will increase your level of motivation. Then, and if you look in the ebook, there's an example of one. Write a resignation letter. Make it very professional. Don't burn any bridges. Do it in a very classy way and very short. Just get to the point and move on. But write that resignation letter and prepare it. Have it typed out, sign it. And then the biggest and probably the scariest part for everybody is deliver the letter to at least one and hopefully more than one accountability partner. And these could be the same people that you talk to in step number 3. But give this letter to those people and explain the date that you plan to do this, and then ask them to commit to it, to mail this letter to your boss or to your manager on the date or around the date that you decided to do this. And you have no choice at that point. They own the letter. They're going to mail it, and now it's just a matter of sticking with the process. Now you have to trust. Now you just have to let go and get your business ready. Get ready to start, because it's happening. It's a done deal. There's no turning back on this, and that's the whole point of it. So if that's something you're ready and willing and able to do, then that will commit you to your decision, and I guarantee that you're going to do whatever it takes to become the entrepreneur that you want to become. Based on you taking up this program, that's what you want. So you're going to get what you want.